Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Andrew's Journey. Right now I am driving through this little small town here in Indiana. It's actually in the Madison County seat, as they would call it. This area is known as Monroe Township. Is Monroe Township. It's a little small town that's it's about 50 minutes away from Indianapolis. So I thought I would just drive through this town real quick and do a little quick video for you people. And one thing I gotta say is this is nothing against Alabama, but one thing I gotta say is here in Indiana, one thing which I do like about Indiana is you have a mix of relatively low cost of living along with a relatively, I'm sorry for that, it's gotta be just the camera here, but yeah, here in Indiana you have a relatively low cost of living in most places mixed with a strong economy. One thing I do appreciate about living here in Indiana is the economy here is strong, and you do have a variety of employment opportunities to choose from. When I was down in Montgomery, Alabama, the highest paying job that I was able to get my hands on was paying $10 an hour. No, I take that back. There's one paying $12.50. But that job that was paying $12.50 an hour was only working me 30 hours a week. Here in Indiana, I've been living here in Indiana since 2010. And here in Indiana, the majority of the jobs that I've had paid anywhere from $13 to $16 an hour full time. I never had any issues at all finding a decent paying full-time job with decent benefits here in Indiana. Now granted, there are things about Indiana which I don't necessarily like. For starters, I'm not a fan of winter. I don't like driving through snow. I don't like super cold weather. As I get older, I despise super cold weather more and more. And I'm not a fan of driving through a bunch of snow and ice, which was the reason why I was hoping that Alabama would have worked out for me. But I will say about Indiana, the economy here is strong. Rather you're living in greater Indianapolis or you're living in greater Fort Wayne or you're living in some of the smaller communities in between, I will say the economy in Indiana is relatively strong. The cost of living here in Indiana is relatively low. It's much lower than many other places in this country. And I would say in comparison to Alabama, now if you're wanting to live in a major city, you will pay a little more money to live in a major city here in Indiana than you will anywhere in Alabama. However, if you're wanting to live in a smaller community, like you want to live in a smaller city, and when I say smaller city, I'm talking 50,000 population or less, then in that case, the cost of living here in Indiana is about the same as it is in Alabama. And off the top of my head, for those of you that are into living in the suburbs, I would say the cost of living in the suburbs here in Indiana is about the same as it would be in Alabama. I mean, I could be wrong on that because I never really took the time to look into living in the suburbs. It's never been my thing. But I'm pretty sure that the cost of living in the suburbs are not going to be a whole lot different living in Indiana compared to Alabama. Now, a lot like Alabama, you don't really have people kicking the door down to move here to Indiana. And quite frankly, I'm glad because A, it keeps the cost of living low, and B, it keeps a lot of the communities from being overcrowded, from being overpopulated. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that here in Indiana, we don't have a problem with a bunch of people wanting to make Indiana their home. I mean, I know that sounds kind of weird, but I'm extremely appreciative of that. So for those that don't like Indiana, you know what? I'm glad. It's kind of like when I was down in Alabama. For those that may have disliked for those that may not like Alabama, I'm pretty sure a lot of your Alabama natives could care less, rather not you like Alabama. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of your natives are kind of delighted that a lot of people don't like Alabama because, once again, it keeps many of the communities down in Alabama from being overcrowded, and then the cost of living goes through the roof. And that's one of the things that drew me to moving to Alabama, was the fact that it wasn't overcrowded. Housing prices down there are fairly low, and there's not a huge influx of people wanting to live in Alabama. So that's one good thing, in my humble opinion, about Alabama. And that's what I like about here in Indiana, is the fact that you don't got people kicking the door down to move here. I mean, Indiana's got a lot of good things to offer. I mean, for those who choose to move here, Indiana's got a lot of good things to offer. Now, I will be honest. I mean, there are going to be a couple of places that I'm going to probably look into in terms of somewhere to move to. Because, like I said, I mean, I like Indiana. I'm just not a fan of winters here in Indiana. I prefer to be somewhere where the winters are a little more milder and shorter and not as cold. So there's a couple of places I'm going to look into and I'm just gonna just kind of check the housing, check the economy, all that fun stuff. Oh, and by the way, I'm driving through a trailer court, which is also here in Monroe Township. I mean, I think the trailers are going for, I want to say, $375 a month rents. And I believe a lot of these trailers are actually up for sale. I mean, you can buy one of these trailers, I believe, for around $500 and then fix it up. And then your lot rent, I believe, is around $350, $400 a month. Somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, this is about all there is to Monroe Township, so I'm going to cut this off, and I will see everybody on the next video. Have a blessed one.